The medium-sized organizations have a huge advantage because they can run fast. They can bring people together. They can create or sometimes already have a culture of collaboration and ideation. To me, the small, medium-sized organization, which is, by the way, why I see startups having such a huge impact, because they can create a culture. They're not having to carry the legacy of the culture like an albatross around their shoulders, right? And so when you can create that culture that really seeks to empower everybody in the organization to ideate and figure out where this goes, those people have a huge advantage over the large organizations. And you said it, right? The silos and the layers get in the way. The C-suite knows what's best, right? They already know the answer. And so this is why I think you see this huge disconnect, and why you see, I think you mentioned these stats that like 85 or 90%, 5% of all AI projects are failing to deliver value because they treat it like it's a spreadsheet, like a productivity tool. I mean, how many times
Yes.
you hear people talking about productivity tools and what we're going to do with these productivity tools? We're going to save costs by laying people off. Oh my gosh, don't you realize that the most valuable assets your organization has is the domain and tribal knowledge buried in those people? That AI can actually amplify that to identify new revenue opportunities, to drive new efficiencies, to new creative ideas, right? They miss it because they think about it as a productivity tool. And I think the hyperscalers are part of the problem here because they're just trying to show you that, hey, throw Copilot or Chat GPT or Gemini in there and you can write better marketing collateral. You can write your letters faster. Well, who gives a shit? Right? What you want to do is, how am I using that to create a better customer experience? How am I doing that to create a more agile supply chain, right? They missed the bigger picture because they haven't backed them and said, wait a second, this AI is very different than your traditional productivity tool. AI has the ability to continuously learn and adapt. And if you train it and you integrate it with the people, I think AI in the middle, not humans working for AI, but AI in the middle guiding them, AI becomes this talent amplifier that it turns every one of your sales reps into your best sales reps, every one of your nurses into your best nurses, turns every one of your basketball players into the best basketball player. So they they fundamentally have the wrong frame. And I like to say, if you want to change the game, change the frame. And instead of thinking about AI as a productivity tool to optimize processes, flip it and say AI is a guide that can amplify the domain expertise and effectiveness of my employees to find new revenue opportunities.
Yeah, there is always a thing like garbage in, garbage out with AI. If you feed wrong prompt, wrong data, inconsistent information, it will just rely on that as truth and give you output based on that. And you coming from big data world, and I saw your work on big data a lot. What do you think? Like, there are structured data, there are unstructured data, and there's a huge data requirement. And large organizations may have leverage to provide AI that level of data that they can make decisions faster, better, quicker. How can this data situation be helpful for creating solutions or creating confusion at the same time with AI? What do you think about data requirement?
Good question. Tough one to ask, wasn't it? It's hard to articulate exactly what the challenge is. And I'm going to start off by saying that the challenge number one is don't start with your data. Don't start with your data. And being a data guy myself, I love getting my hands in with the data and start playing with it and see what I can find in the data. The problem is if you don't know what it is you're trying to accomplish, if you don't know what's valuable to the organization, then it's hard to distinguish signal from noise in the data. I don't know what data is most valuable. I don't even know what data elements or even what data rows are most valuable if I don't know what value is. And so the challenge we've got, especially as data people, is that we want to jump right into the data. I had this very same conversation recently around causal AI. And the idea around causal AI is that we'll just grab the data and we'll start looking for trends and patterns. I said, no, no. What you need to do is you bring together your domain experts. Causal AI is trying to predict the causes of certain outcomes. Let's say that you're a hospital and you're trying to predict the cause of a fall. Let's say that your business initiative is to reduce hospital falls. Big issue, right? Costs you tens of millions of dollars every year in patients falling, lawsuits and injury, all kinds of things go bad. So reducing hospital falls is a really good initiative. Don't start with the data. Start with your domain experts. Ask them, what are the factors that usually contribute to a fall? And it'll tell you things like, well, their age, their mobility, the kind of sedations they're on, the lighting in the room. They'll give you 18, 20, 24 different variables that from their detailed experience, the nurses and the doctors who work with these people every day will tell you the 18 or 20 variables that most likely contribute to falls. Once I have that, I can start building a structured causal model. I can build my DAGs, and I can start using data to not only to validate that's true, those are the right ones, but also find that, hey, these are also ones that may be related to that are also important. But start with the humans. Start with understanding what the causal factors are, which means you need to understand what they're probably trying to solve, and let data help to validate, to strengthen, to imagine what else might be out there. So, again, I think the challenge we as data people have, and I in particular have this as a big data person and a BI person before that, is I always wanted to start with the data. Let's build the dashboard. Let's build the analytic models. Let's do this without really stepping back and thinking, okay, what are we trying to accomplish? What are our desired outcomes? How are we going to measure success? What's important to our stakeholders?
It's very interesting the way you explained, and I totally agree with that. Start with the end result first. Define your future state. All this situation with AI race, I call it a fear factor. Okay, so it's an acronym, is what I call it as, like F as FOMO. Okay, leaders are trying to solve problems they haven't defined. Try, they're just trying to catch up. Okay, and then E as an education gap. Leaders don't have enough education or awareness about what AI can do and what it is built for, and what are its limitations. A as an alignment gap. Exactly what you refer to, like start with your use case, okay, the customer outcome, and then see, okay, what data can help to fill that and deliver it in the end, which is roadmap is not there, it's missing, right? So when FEAR blends together is when actually transformation becomes more meaningful.
That is really good because it does, I think, summarize the fear at the beginning forces people to act before they think. There's a rush to action. There's an education and awareness gap about what this technology can really do. Yeah, it can write better marketing collateral, but it can build simulations to help make trade-off decisions around some of our most difficult challenges. The alignment gap is one I see all the time. In fact, what I did at Dell adopted my thinking like a data science methodology, what I teach at the university. And the first two steps in that methodology is all around driving alignment, both silos and layers. How do you
Yeah.
break those apart? How do you mine that organizational tribal knowledge that you can use to train your AI models? It's a very useful way to think about it because we don't think about education up front on the full scope, and we certainly don't think about alignment. And as a result, we leave your example about 95% of companies are failing. Think how much money these companies are leaving on the table. Astronomical amounts of money because they haven't backed up, they haven't looked at fear and figured out, what I need to do.
Yeah, and also it's not just like the people who are actually on the floor working and implementing AI. And there is another study that says, like, organization emphasizing AI literacy at an executive level are projected to outperform peers financially. There is a huge advantage of awareness and education.
They don't sound like AI. They don't sound like neural networks and reinforcement learning models. Why am I spending time on education awareness and alignment? If we want to drive
Yeah.
value, then we need to start the conversation around value, and then let AI and all the marvelous AI tools available to us, and data and all the unbelievable data we can have, or we do have, or could have, help us to achieve that.